dear students, to the massive open online course on money and financial markets. Today in Module 2, we are going to deal with the functions of money. The objectives of this module are as follows. In this module, firstly, we will concentrate on the barter system and the difficulties encountered in this system. We will then broadly deal with the various functions of money, and at every point we would give practical examples. We would then end the module by outlining the various characteristics which money should possess. In doing so, we would try to compare between the various forms or a particular form of commodity money and fiat money. Now, money is something that people use every day. We earn it and spend it, but we don't even think about doing all these things. Economists usually define money as any good that is widely accepted as final payment for goods and services. Money has taken different forms throughout the ages. If we take examples of cowrie shells that were used in Africa, large stone wheels that were used in the Pacific island of Yap, strings of beads called wampum that were used by Native Americans and the early American settlers. These were all different forms of commodity money. In the primitive period, in the absence of money, the prevalent system was the barter system. This meant that people were generally able to exchange goods and services without any need for monetary transactions between the parties involved. For example, a farmer could exchange 10 kilos of apples for 10 liters of milk produced by another farmer. However, the barter system encountered many difficulties. The major difficulty that it encountered was double coincidence of wants. This double coincidence of wants is a very important presumption for the barter system to function smoothly. It means that it is not always possible for someone who owns some goods to find a person who would be in need of his goods and at the same time would possess the same good needed by the former. To explain this more clearly, let us take an example. Suppose Mr. A produces apples in his orchard and he wishes to exchange it for milk. Mr. A can enter into an exchange only when there is somebody who produces milk and at the same time has a demand for apples. Here, an implicit assumption is that the quantities of these two individuals should also match. However, this is an extremely rare coincidence. Hence, it is very difficult to undertake transactions in barter exchange. The other difficulties that are faced by the barter system are that there is no common measure of value. In the barter system, there is a total absence of a common measure of value that can put all commodities in an array. Each commodity would have different value depending on which commodity they are exchanged with. For example, the price of 1 kg of apples could be 2 liters of milk, it could be 5 kgs of potatoes, or it could be 1 kg of rice, and so on. So we see that each commodity has to be listed against a set of commodities for which the former has to be exchanged. Another very important problem that is encountered by the barter system is difficulty in divisibility. Basically, non-divisibility of commodities acts as a major hindrance in the barter system. Let us take an example. A farmer, he wishes to exchange his goat for 10 kgs of rice. However, the exchange value of one goat is 20 kgs of rice. So basically, to get 10 kgs of rice, he should give only half of his goat, which is basically absurd, totally absurd in this case. So the goat cannot be divided into smaller units for this exchange to take place. So here we see another very practical problem for the barter system. The last point or the last problem that we encounter in the barter system is the absence of inter-temporal choice. What do I mean by inter-temporal choice? Inter-temporal choice refers to the decision making in the current period after considering all the options available in the future period. Again, I will take an example to explain this. Suppose a goat was borrowed by Mr. A from Mr. B in 2022. Should the borrower return 1.5 goats to Mr. B in 2023? This again seems absurd. The above example clearly illustrates the problem of deferred payments and divisibility, which is inherent in the barter system. The goods a person can exchange may be perishable, which means the owner should either exchange them or use them before they lose their value. It means that services and many types of goods would not allow the value associated with them to be stored. This brings us to the concept of whether government always have a tendency to limit the barter system. It is really the case. Governments do have a tendency to limit barter even when it is feasible, because it generally results in a loss of revenue for the government. Once we understand the limits of barter, we can easily understand the function that money has in our society. Money basically acts as a medium of exchange, it acts as a store of value, and it also acts as a unit of account, apart from the fact that it is also a standard of deferred payments. So the problem that were prevalent in the barter system were resolved gradually with the evolution of money. Thus, we come to the functions of money. As you can see from the diagram in the slide, that there are basically 4 functions of money: medium of exchange, store of value, standard of deferred payments, and measure of value. We will take each one of them separately and explain. Medium of exchange. The major difficulty in the barter system was that each transaction requires a double coincidence of wants. Much time was involved for searching an eligible person for viable transaction to take place. The severity of this problem was reduced to a certain extent by using money as a medium of exchange. So, a monetary economy typically involves exchanges of goods and services for money and of money for goods, but not for goods for goods. The primary function of money is that it acts as a medium of exchange. A medium of exchange is an asset that can be used in a transaction to exchange goods and services. Gold and other precious metals has been used as a medium of exchange before money itself or alongside it. Now, for an asset to be a proper medium of exchange, it should have certain characteristics. They are as follows. Number one, they should be readily acceptable. It is generally true if the medium of exchange has a known value. People know how much a 100 rupee note is worth and have at least an idea of what it can buy at any given point of time. Secondly, it should be easily divisible. A good medium of exchange should allow not only for small transactions but also for large transactions to take place. Banknotes and coins are generally available in different denominations in order to allow large value transactions as well as small value transactions to take place. Thirdly, they must have a high value relative to their weights. It is because a good medium of exchange should be easy to transport. I should be able to carry the notes and coins in my pocket or my purse, and so they should have lesser weights compared to their values. So I don't know how many of you ever feel the weight of a 500 rupees note in your pockets. Lastly, it must be very difficult to counterfeit or print duplicate money. If it's not, its value would be difficult to know with reasonable certainty, and it would not be accepted as a medium of transaction. The second function of money is known as standard of deferred payment. This function is somehow related to the first function as it creates credit and allows transactions to be settled in the future. To be a standard of deferred payment, money must be an accepted way to value and settle the debt in the future. In the barter system, future payment of commodity loans was a major problem. However, in the monetary economy, all deferred payments are stipulated in monetary terms or in money terms. If there are large fluctuations in the value of money, then it will be considered to be a bad standard of deferred payment. So, monetary authorities will have to take steps so that they can keep the value of the money stable. The third important function of money is that it is a store of value. Money basically is the most convenient way to store the purchasing power of the people. This function of money is derived from the use of money as a medium of exchange. So basically, the third function is also derived from the first function, that is money's function as a medium of exchange. So students, can you tell me how the third function of money, that is store of value, is also derived from the use of money as a medium of exchange? The answer to that question is as follows. A single transaction is basically divided into sale and purchase. So, it is not necessary that a person who makes sale and purchase, they will make it at the same time. He can sell it today and he can make a purchase later. This converts the function of the medium of exchange of money into a store of value. The money taken in exchange for the goods sold today may be stored until it is required. So we can see that holding of money is a more effective way of storing value than holding other items of value such as, say, corn, wheat, and so on, which are perishable commodities and they may rot after a certain period of time. But here we need to be a bit cautious, because although money is an efficient store of value, but it is not a perfect store of value. Inflation basically erodes the purchasing power of money over time. A rise in the price level leads to a decrease in the purchasing power of money, as more money would be needed to buy a typical basket of goods. And this is what we know as inflation tax. So students, I would like to ask you, what do you mean by inflation tax? Is it really a tax? No. Inflation tax is not an actual legal tax that is paid to the government. It basically refers to the penalty for holding cash at a time of high inflation. When the government prints more money, or when there is more money in circulation, or when the government reduces the interest rate, it generally floods the market with cash, and this raises inflation in the long run. So, if a person is holding cash in his purse, it would be worth less after a price rise has taken place. So, the degree of decrease in the value of cash is termed as inflation tax for the way it punishes people who hold assets in cash. The next function of money is money as a unit of account. Now, you can think of money as a yardstick. Basically, you can think of money as a device we can use to measure value in economic transactions. Suppose you are shopping for a new computer, and the price of the computer is quoted in terms of, say, bicycles, or in terms of, say, kilograms of rice. So, for instance, your new computer costs you 100 kgs of rice at today's price. But you find it most helpful if the price was set in terms of money, because it is a common measure of value across the country. In India, for example, virtually all prices, wages, assets, debts, everything are expressed in terms of rupees. So having a single uniform measure of value is very convenient for people in their everyday lives. For example, pricing of all goods in India is done in rupees. Instead, if suppose some goods were priced in yen, or some goods were priced in gold, or some goods were priced in terms of the share of the Infosys company, it would be very difficult for us to really understand that. And so we really need money to simplify the comparison among different kinds of goods. Till now, I had explained the various functions of money. We have found that money had taken many forms in history, but some forms of money have worked better than others because they have certain characteristics that make them more useful than others. So here we need to focus on the various characteristics of money. They are durability, portability, divisibility, uniformity, limited supply, and acceptability. To understand properly these various characteristics of money, I will try to compare two types of money. One, a type of commodity money. Basically, we know that the most commonly used commodity money in primitive societies was cattle or cow. So here we will take cow as commodity money, and we will, on the other hand, we will take fiat money. So we will take, say, a stack of 500 rupees notes, which will be equal to the value of one cow. And we will try to run down these various characteristics of money that I have listed above, and we will try to see how they stack up against each other. Coming to the first point, durability. Now we see that a cow is a fairly durable one. A long trip to the market will make the cow tired. It can make it sick, or because of tiredness and sickness, the cow can eventually die. And this can severely reduce the value of the cow. On the other hand, if I try to compare this with fiat money, say a 500 rupees note, it is fairly durable and it can easily be replaced even if it is worn out. Even better, if I take a long trip with a 500 rupees note in my pocket, it does not threaten its value or the value of the notes. So we see here that in terms of durability, the 500 rupees notes scores better than the commodity money cow. The next point that I have is that of portability. Cow is essentially very difficult to transport to the store, while the currency, that is a 500 rupees note in my pocket, is essentially very easy for me to transport. So in terms of portability, also the fiat money scores over cow, the commodity money. My next point is that of divisibility. A 500 rupees note can be exchanged for any type of other denominations. I can exchange a 500 rupees note for 500 rupees note or for some 50 rupees notes and so on. But on the other hand, I cannot exchange cow for any other divisible commodities. So cow, on the other hand, is not divisible. So in terms of divisibility also, we find that the commodity money is really not doing very fine with respect to the fiat money. My next point is that of uniformity. We know that cows come in various shapes and sizes, and each of these will have a different value. So we can say that cows essentially are not a uniform form of money. 500 rupees notes are all of the same size and shape and value, and they're all uniform. So in terms of uniformity, these 500 rupees notes is doing much better than that of cows. The next point is limited supply. In order to maintain its value, money must have limited supply. I have been telling this repeatedly that whenever the supply of money rises, it leads to inflation in the economy, which is not really a desired thing. So, we understand that the supply of cows are limited. But suppose if cows were used as money, I'm sure that the rancher would have increased the supply of cows and would result in a decrease in the value of the cows. So, the supply and therefore the value of 500 rupees notes and money in general are basically regulated by the central bank so that the money retains its value over time. And the last point that I have is that of acceptability. Even though cows have intrinsic value, some people may not accept these cows as money. In contrast, people are willing to accept 500 rupees notes as money. So acceptability is a very, very important characteristic of money. Based on these characteristics of money, we find that 500 rupees notes are a much better form of money than cattle or cows. While I conclude this module, we can summarize that money has taken many forms throughout the ages. But money consistently has three functions: store of value, unit of account, medium of exchange, and a fourth one, relatively less important fourth one, that is a standard of deferred payment. I have also explained that fiat money scores over commodity money, but in our modern economy, we use fiat money, money that is neither a commodity nor it is represented or backed by a commodity. Even forms of money that share these functions may be more or less useful based on the various characteristics of money that I have described above. Thank you.